Chosen one. Listen carefully. This is not a coincidence. Heaven has pressed pause on everything around you so that these words could reach you at this exact moment. You are not here by chance. You are here because eternity has whispered your name again. You are not one of many. You are one in divine design. There is a reason why doors closed, why certain people left, and why you felt unseen. It was never because you were forgotten. It was because you were being selected. You see, the world does not understand the process of divine separation. You were never meant to fit in, even as a child. Something inside you resisted conformity. You looked at the world differently. You felt things more deeply. You noticed the brokenness around you and wondered why your heart carried such a heavy compassion. That was heaven's fingerprint, the mark of divine awareness that few carry. You are one of the few. Every tear you shed in the silence of your room was seen. Every night you questioned why life felt heavier for you than others. Those questions were not rebellion. They were the cries of someone heaven trusted with weight. God does not give heavy assignments to fragile vessels. He chooses the strong, the enduring, the ones who can stand when others crumble. That's you. The chosen are not the perfect. They are the prepared through pain. And so, the winds that once threatened to destroy you were, in truth, the breath of God positioning you. Every storm was an instrument. Every delay was a disguise. You thought you were losing time, but in reality, you were being sharpened for divine timing. For every heartbreak, heaven was carving deeper empathy within you. For every rejection, God was amplifying your resilience. You were being built, not broken. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Jeremiah. Chapter 1, verse 5. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart for nations. Let that truth sink into your spirit. Before time began, your name was spoken. Before your parents met, before your first breath, heaven had already assigned your purpose. You were not created to simply survive. You were designed to shift atmospheres, to carry the presence of the living God wherever you go. That is why you have felt the battle so intensely. Hell does not waste ammunition on those without purpose. The warfare you faced is the confirmation of the anointing you carry. There were moments when you asked, "Why me?" And the answer from heaven remains, because you said yes when others refused, because your heart remained tender when the world grew cold, because even in your doubt, you still whispered his name. You were chosen not for perfection, but for faithfulness, and faithfulness, beloved, is heaven's favorite fragrance. The path of the chosen is never easy. You have walked through confusion, isolation, and seasons where it felt like God was silent. But silence is not absence, it is divine strategy. When heaven trains warriors, it hides them. You were hidden, not forgotten, concealed, not cancelled. God was preparing you away from the noise, teaching you to hear his whisper above the chaos. You were not being punished. You were being refined in private, so that when the time came, your public impact would carry eternal weight. Listen, your calling is not just about your personal success. It is about the souls connected to your obedience. There are lives waiting for your yes. Every decision you make to walk in light, every time you choose forgiveness instead of bitterness, every time you choose prayer instead of complaint, heaven moves. You shift realities. You release light in dark places. You are a walking declaration that grace still wins. And now, hear me clearly. This moment is sacred. You are not reading by coincidence. Heaven orchestrated this intersection to remind you that your destiny is alive. The same power that raised Christ from the dead lives within you. You have authority. You have purpose. You have heaven's attention. Your journey begins here, right now. In this awareness, if these words resonate within your spirit, pause and act. Type 777 inches, the comments as a prophetic declaration that you receive this truth. Like this message, to let the heavens know you agree with your calling. Share it, not for fame, but as a seed of obedience, because someone connected to you needs to remember they too are chosen. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to remain aligned with this flow of divine revelation. You are not late. You are not lost. You are perfectly placed within God's timing. You are the chosen one, and heaven is not finished with you. You begin to notice it, the subtle difference that sets you apart. The quiet authority that walks with you, even when you doubt yourself. There is something unexplainable about your presence. People can't always define it, but they feel it. The air changes when you enter a room, not because of ego, but because of essence. You carry heaven's signature, a silent confirmation that you have been chosen for something beyond human comprehension. This mark of favor is invisible to the natural eye, yet undeniable to the spiritual realm. It makes you misunderstood by some and admired by others. You may wonder why certain people are drawn to you, while others suddenly turn away. The truth is, the light in you reveals what is hidden in them. Some are comforted by it, others are convicted by it. That is the cost of carrying divine favor. It exposes truth simply by existing from the beginning. You were different, even before you understood God's voice. Heaven recognized you. You have been carrying a royal seal, one that no human can revoke. It doesn't fade with failure, and it doesn't dim with time. God's mark remains because it was not earned. It was bestowed. It was carved into your spirit when He spoke your name in eternity. When others compared themselves to you, they saw the surface, but heaven saw the depth, the endurance, the quiet strength, the capacity to hold revelation without being crushed by it. That's why you couldn't walk the easy path. You were not being punished, you were being trusted. Divine favor is not a crown of comfort, it is a mantle of responsibility. You were chosen not to boast, but to build. You felt it before, the strange tension between humility and power, between feeling small and knowing you carry something eternal. That tension is divine. It keeps you grounded while reminding you that your life has a mission beyond survival. It is the mark of the anointed, the ability to feel unworthy yet called, fragile yet fearless. The apostle reminds us in his letter to the first believers, 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 9, "But you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, called into His light." Those words are not ancient poetry, they are your identity in written form. You were not pulled out of darkness just to stand in the light. You were called to declare that light. The mark of favor on your life is not meant to isolate you in pride. It is meant to position you as a beacon. You are a walking testimony of transformation. Every scar tells a story of grace. Every limitation becomes an altar where glory rests. The mark you carry often attracts opposition, because the enemy can sense what heaven has invested in you. That's why you faced sudden attacks when you tried to rise. The closer you move toward purpose, the louder the resistance becomes. But remember this, pressure confirms promise. If you were not valuable, darkness would not bother with you. The resistance is proof that you matter in the unseen realm. When you feel weary of standing out, remind yourself you were not chosen to blend in. You were chosen to stand apart. The oil on your life requires separation. You cannot wear the world's mask and still carry heaven's fire. That's why God keeps setting you apart, removing what no longer aligns, pruning away what cannot grow with you. It's not rejection, it's refinement. There will come a moment when you understand why certain seasons were lonely. It will all make sense when your influence begins to unfold. People will say, "You changed," not realizing that you were never meant to remain the same. Favor transforms. The presence of God renews the mind and reshapes the heart until you reflect His nature more than your own. You may have thought you were being overlooked, but in truth, heaven was revealing your distinction. The chosen ones always walk through silent seasons before visible elevation. God hides His greatest vessels in plain sight until the appointed time, and when that time comes, your light will not need to compete, it will simply be. So carry that unseen seal with reverence, not pride. Let it humble you, but also strengthen you. Walk with quiet authority, knowing that your presence alone carries weight in the spiritual realm. Every word you speak, every prayer you whisper, every act of kindness heaven notices. The favor that rests upon you is not fading, it's awakening. Chosen one, you have carried more than most. The battles you fought in silence were never ordinary. They were the markings of one being prepared for divine purpose. Every heartbreak, every betrayal, every sleepless night where you questioned if God still saw you, all of it was part of the molding. You were not being destroyed, you were being shaped. You thought you were breaking down, but you were actually breaking open. Heaven was carving out space for glory to dwell within you. Pain has been your teacher. It stripped away illusions and forced you to confront what was real. You learned to stand when support vanished, to trust when nothing made sense, and to forgive when bitterness tried to rule your heart. These are not weaknesses, they are signs of spiritual strength. You have survived storms that others would not have endured because God placed a different kind of spirit inside you. The ancient words recorded in Romans chapter 8, verse 28, "And we know that all things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to His purpose." No, you, beloved, are one of those called ones. Nothing that happened was wasted. The betrayals refined your discernment. The rejections redirected your steps. The losses purified your motives. Heaven has been turning your pain into prophecy. What once felt like punishment is now becoming the platform for your power. The weight you carried was evidence of the mantle you were being trusted with. Understand this, the deeper the wound, the greater the anointing that flows from it. Oil only comes when olives are crushed. Gold only shines when refined by fire. And you, chosen one, have endured both crushing and fire. You have walked through the valley and come out carrying something eternal. That's why you can't return to what broke you. You've changed at a cellular level. Your spirit has matured beyond the world's games. Do you remember the moments when you almost gave up? When you whispered prayers you weren't sure heaven heard? Yet somehow, strength appeared out of nowhere. That was not chance. That was grace stepping in. Unseen, but undeniable. The same grace that carried you then is carrying you now. It's transforming your scars into a message. Your testimony will be the key that unlocks hope in others. But first, you must embrace what you've become. Stop apologizing for your growth. Stop minimizing your journey to make others comfortable. You have walked through darkness with integrity. You have earned your light. God did not bring you this far to hide you again. What was meant to silence you will now amplify your voice. The very pain that once confined you will now confirm you. You may not see the full picture yet, but the divine pattern is unfolding. Heaven wastes nothing. Every delay is preparing alignment. Every detour has been divine direction. You have not lost time. You have gained depth. You are more prepared now than you've ever been. Your calling carries weight because your story carries proof. You don't preach theory, you live revelation. That is why people feel peace when you speak. That is why strangers open their hearts around you. The spirit within you radiates authenticity. And authenticity is heaven's language in a world addicted to pretending. Now, pause for a moment and breathe. You have survived what was designed to end you. You have walked through shadows and still chosen light. That makes you rare. You are part of heaven's remnant, the few who refuse to give up, even when unseen. Every tear you cried became an offering. Every yes you whispered in pain became worship. And heaven has not ignored it. The time has come for you to stand boldly in your healing. You are not a victim of your story. You are the victory born from it. You carry evidence that redemption is real. Let the world see that resilience wrapped in grace. Let them see that divine favor can rest on someone who has wrestled with doubt, yet refused to let go of faith. And now, before you move on, I want you to declare something simple but powerful. Go to the comments and write, "I rise." Say it as a spiritual act, not just as words, because when you type it, you are agreeing with heaven's narrative over your life. You are saying that despite the battles, despite the losses, despite the weight, you are choosing to rise again. That declaration shifts things in the unseen. It tells darkness that it no longer has permission to define you. It tells heaven that you are ready to step into purpose with renewed strength. You are not who you were yesterday. You are stronger, wiser, deeper. Your scars have become symbols of glory, and your rising has only just begun. You never understood why the attacks began so early. Even as a child, when others were carefree, you felt the unseen pressure, the heaviness that seemed to follow you for no clear reason. You were targeted not because of what you had done, but because of what you would one day carry. Darkness always detects destiny before people do. Hell studies potential, the way heaven studies purpose. And long before you knew your calling, the enemy knew you were marked. He saw the light flickering within you and sent storms to extinguish it. But here you are, still burning. That alone is proof that grace has guarded you. You have faced moments that could have broken your mind, seasons where despair whispered louder than faith. Yet, something in you refused to bow. That was not willpower, it was divine preservation. You were never fighting alone. The unseen hand of God stood between you and destruction, shielding the promise even when you didn't recognize His presence. The battles you faced were not coincidences, they were confirmations. When you carry something from heaven, opposition is inevitable. Every chosen one walks through a battlefield of unseen warfare. The enemy doesn't waste his fire on those who pose no threat. He attacks the builders, the reformers, the ones who carry light that cannot be dimmed. That's you. The apostle wrote of this reality in Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Oh, there is a strength inside you that even you have not fully discovered yet. It awakens in crisis. It stands firm when logic fails. That strength is not learned. It is inherited from the Spirit of the living God within you. When others panic, you discern. When others flee, you pray. When others curse, you bless. These are not small actions. They are spiritual strategies. Every time you choose peace over reaction, light expands its territory. Think about it. Every attack that was meant to silence you has only deepened your conviction. Every trial has revealed a new layer of who you are. Pain has become your prophet. It has shown you where the enemy fears you most. He wouldn't fight you so violently if you weren't carrying something valuable. You have a light that exposes deception, a faith that rattles darkness, and a love that disarms hatred. But understand this, the war over your soul is not just about you. It's about everyone who will encounter God through your life. The enemy wants to steal your peace because your peace delivers others. He wants to drown your voice because your voice awakens sleeping hearts. That's why you felt misunderstood. Your language is not of this world. You speak in the dialect of heaven. And not everyone can hear it yet. You've had moments where the pressure felt unbearable, where betrayal came from those you trusted most. Yet even that was part of the refining. God allowed certain wounds to expose who could not walk with you into your next season. Sometimes protection looks like disappointment. The doors that slammed shut were not rejection, they were redirection. Heaven was guarding your mission from contamination. So, do not fear the warfare. Beloved, you are not defenseless. Every weapon formed against you has already been disarmed by the blood of the Lamb. The battle may rage, but victory is already your inheritance. You are not fighting for victory, you are fighting from victory. The authority you carry comes not from your effort, but from your alignment with heaven's will. When you walk into a room, darkness trembles, not because of your name, but because of the one who walks with you. You are covered, shielded, and surrounded. Angels stand at attention when you pray. Demons flee when you worship. The power you hold is not human, it's divine. The enemy wanted to convince you that you were weak. But even your weakness is a weapon when surrendered to God. Every tear you've cried has watered the ground for your next harvest. Every loss has become soil for revelation. You were never losing, you were being prepared to lead. And now, as you stand in the middle of your journey, understand that the war is proof of your worth. The greater the resistance, the greater the revelation that follows. You are not under attack because you are cursed. You are under attack because you are chosen. The battle confirms your belonging, so lift your head. Warrior of light. You are not broken, you are armed. You are not defeated, you are destined. The same power that sustained David against Goliath and Daniel in the lion's den is the same power that sustains you now. Your soul has been tempered by divine fire, and no darkness can extinguish what God Himself ignited. There comes a season when heaven grows silent. You pray, and the echo feels empty. You reach out, and it seems no hand reaches back. The silence of God is one of the most mysterious gifts you will ever receive. Though it rarely feels like a gift at first, it feels like abandonment, like you have been forgotten in the shadows. But listen carefully. Chosen one, silence is not absence. It is the sound of divine construction. When a seed is planted, the soil grows still. There are no trumpets announcing its transformation, no light to prove that life is happening underground. Yet, in that stillness, the seed breaks open. It dies to what it was, so it can become what it was, destined to be. That is what God has been doing in you. You thought everything stopped, but beneath the surface, roots were growing. You were being anchored, strengthened, and prepared for storms you couldn't yet see. We are reminded through the writings of David in Psalm chapter 46, verse 10, "Be still, and know that I am God." Those words are not a suggestion. They are a command from heaven to the restless heart. Be still. Even when the noise of doubt is deafening, be still when doors remain closed. Be still when others seem to be advancing while you wait. Because the stillness you fight against is the very soil where strength is born. There is purpose in this pause. When God hides his voice, he is training your ear. He wants you to trust his nature more than his noise. He wants you to learn that his silence still speaks, just as a teacher remains quiet during the test. God's silence doesn't mean he's gone. It means he's watching to see if you'll remember what he already taught you. The silence of preparation is like the midnight before dawn dark, stretching, endless. Yet, if you stay long enough, the first whisper of light begins to break through. That's how breakthroughs come quietly, faithfully, through those who refuse to quit during the night. You've been walking through that midnight, beloved, but dawn is forming on your horizon. The very silence that once scared you is now revealing your strength. So don't mistake stillness for stagnation. The cocoon looks like confinement until the wings emerge. The waiting feels like delay until the door opens. What you call stuck is actually God saying, "Stay still while I sculpt something holy." He is writing a story that requires silence between the sentences. And as you listen now, I ask something small but sacred of you. If these words have reached the quiet place of your soul, show it. Let this message become an echo. Tap the heart, not for me, but as a signal to heaven that you are still listening. Share this with someone who sits in their own silence tonight, wondering if God has forgotten them. You may be the candle in their dark room, and if your spirit feels stirred, consider sowing into this flow. Your seed of support becomes oil that keeps the flame alive. What you give, no matter how small, becomes part of the chain that carries light into more silent hearts. You are not just consuming words, you are participating in a movement of renewal. Subscribe to stay close to this current of faith, because there are revelations yet to come that will find you exactly when you need them most. Think of it this way: every lighthouse needs those who keep its flame burning. When you give, when you share, when you stand with this message, you help keep that light visible for those still lost at sea. Together, we make sure no soul drifts too far from hope. And you, yes, you reading this are part of that light. You are proof that waiting seasons end and that silence is never wasted. You are learning to find God not in thunder but in whisper, not in miracles but in moments. The divine voice that once roared now hums through your heartbeat. You have learned to hear heaven without sound, That is maturity. That is mastery. So keep walking through the quiet with confidence. Let patience become your praise. Let stillness be your sanctuary. Because in this silence, heaven is not far, it is focused. God is preparing the next chapter of your story. And when He speaks again, the words will change everything. Until that moment comes, stay faithful in the hush. Keep tending the little fires, your prayers, your acts of kindness, your hope. You are not forgotten. You are being fortified. The God who was silent is the same God who is still working. And one day soon, you will look back on this stillness and realize it was never empty at all. It was sacred. There are moments when life collapses so suddenly that it feels as if heaven itself has turned its face away. You look around and see doors that once opened with ease, now sealed shut. Relationships that once felt eternal, now fading like mist. You try to understand why everything seems to fall apart at once. But the truth is this: nothing that breaks under divine watch breaks by accident. Every crumbling structure is an invitation to trust again. When God interrupts your plans, it is not to punish you, it is to protect you from paths that would lead to destruction. He tears down what is unstable so that He can rebuild what is eternal. You may not understand it now, but every loss you've endured is a form of divine redirection. The shattered pieces of your expectations are being rearranged into a mosaic of purpose. Sometimes heaven dismantles what you thought was destiny because it knows the difference between a good thing and a God thing. You prayed for peace, and He removed what kept you restless. You prayed for strength, and He took away your crutches. You prayed for direction, and He closed doors that would have led you in circles. What you called chaos was actually construction in disguise. Heaven speaks clearly through the words in Psalm chapter 37, verse 23, "The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and He delights in His way." Those words are not poetic comfort, they are divine strategy. Every step you take, even the ones that feel uncertain, are part of a sequence choreographed by heaven. The detours were not delays, they were protection. The endings were not failures, they were transitions. God has been guiding you, even when you thought you were wandering. But here is the secret many overlook. Divine interruption is often disguised as heartbreak. Sometimes, in order to save your destiny, God has to break your routine. You prayed for transformation, and He answered by removing what was temporary. You thought He was silent, but He was simply speaking in a language called change. Remember when everything you relied on began to shift? That was heaven testing the foundation of your faith. It had to see whether your trust was in blessings or in the One who gives them. True faith begins when control ends. That's the moment when surrender becomes sacred. You have been walking through a divine reset. Even if you didn't recognize it, the job that ended, the friendship that faded, the plan that failed, all of it was God clearing the stage for something greater. You were never meant to build your life on temporary scaffolding. He is anchoring you to things that cannot be shaken. Think of it like a storm that uproots the trees with shallow roots but strengthens the ones planted deep. The shaking exposes what wasn't stable, so that only what's rooted in truth remains. That's what God is doing in your life right now, removing the excess so that the essential can thrive. It hurts. Yes, transformation always does. But this pain is proof that you are being redirected, not rejected. The same God who allowed the storm will also command the calm. The same hands that pruned will soon plant again. You will look back and realize that every breakdown carried the blueprint for your breakthrough. Right now, heaven is orchestrating encounters you cannot see. While you grieve what was, angels are arranging what will be. Don't rush the process. Divine timing is not late, it is precise. Every divine delay hides a preparation you don't yet understand. And here, chosen one, I ask you to pause, not in despair, but in declaration. If this message stirs something in your spirit, if you sense that this is your confirmation that God is working behind the scenes, then let heaven hear your agreement. Go to the comments and type 555, not as a number, but as a prophetic act of surrender. Let it symbolize grace in transition, a sign that you trust the divine rearranging taking place in your life. When you type it, you are saying, even if I don't see the plan, I still believe the planner. You are aligning your spirit with divine orchestration, allowing heaven to continue guiding your steps with precision and mercy. You are walking into a season of restoration that requires only one thing: trust. The ground beneath you may still feel unstable, but that's only because it's being renewed. You are not being buried, you are being replanted. And what grows next will be stronger, purer, and eternal. So breathe deeply. Beloved, the chaos was not your end, it was your awakening. You are stepping into divine rhythm now, where every step you take is in sync with heaven's heartbeat. Keep walking. You are being led by the unseen, guided by the unshakable, and held by the eternal. It begins quietly, an awakening that does not arrive with thunder, but with a whisper inside your soul. After all the breaking, all the nights of questioning, there comes a moment when your heart finally starts to remember who you truly are. You begin to see glimpses of yourself as heaven always saw you, not through the lens of failure or fear, but through the reflection of divine identity. You are not merely surviving, you are remembering. For too long, the world has tried to name you based on your wounds. People labeled you by your mistakes, your struggles, your past. But heaven never agreed with those labels. From the beginning, your true name was spoken in glory. It was not broken, not lost, not unworthy. Your name was chosen, redeemed. Beloved, God has been patiently waiting for you to hear that name again. When the veil lifts, you realize that you have been walking among illusions, false versions of yourself shaped by pain and expectation. You have been chasing acceptance from those who could never comprehend your value. You have bowed to opinions, forgetting that you carry royal blood. But no more. The revelation of identity strips away every counterfeit version of you. You stand in front of the mirror and finally see not what the world has done to you, but what God has placed inside you. The Spirit spoke through the psalmist in Psalm chapter 82, verse 6. You are God's, and all of you are children of the Most High. These words do not speak of arrogance, they speak of origin. You were made in the image of divinity, crafted in the likeness of power and purpose. The world has tried to convince you that you are ordinary, but the Word reminds you that the breath within you came from heaven itself. The spark of creation burns in your bones. That is why darkness fears you. You do not belong to the ground you carry, the essence of eternity. This revelation changes everything. You start to walk differently, not out of pride, but out of remembrance. You stop begging for validation because you realize that divine inheritance needs no approval. You stop competing for worth because you understand that your value was settled before your birth. You stop apologizing for existing because you finally see that your existence was intentional. When you truly know who you are, silence no longer feels like punishment, it becomes power. Waiting no longer feels like delay, it becomes training. Pain no longer feels like curse, it becomes revelation. Everything you have walked through becomes material for transformation. What the world used to shame you, God uses to shape you. Identity is the foundation of authority. You cannot command storms until you know you were born to calm them. You cannot heal others until you understand you were made whole by grace. That's why the enemy worked so hard to make you forget who you are. If he can confuse your identity, he can neutralize your impact. But now the fog is lifting. You are remembering what was hidden beneath years of lies. You were never meant to shrink to fit the world's expectations. You were meant to stretch the world's imagination of what heaven on earth looks like. You carry something unseen yet undeniable, the presence that shifts atmospheres, the peace that stills chaos, the faith that rebuilds what others call impossible. Look back at your journey. The rejection, the heartbreak, the trials, they were not evidence of abandonment. They were evidence of distinction. God was teaching you what not to become, who not to depend on, and where not to settle. Every closed door was heaven whispering, "You are not meant to live small." And now, as you step into the awareness of who you are, you will notice how everything changes. The same situations that once intimidated you will now bow before your confidence. The same voices that once silenced you will fall silent in your peace. The same places where you once hid will become altars of testimony. You no longer move through life as a victim of circumstance, but as a vessel of purpose. When you know who you are, you stop asking the world for permission to shine. You realize that humility is not dimming your light. It is recognizing that the light was never yours to begin with. It is borrowed glory, divine flame, entrusted to you for a time such as this. So walk as one who remembers. Let every step echo identity. Let every word carry the weight of awareness. You are not becoming something new. You are returning to what you always were before the world tried to make you forget. You are a reflection of divine majesty in human form, a vessel of eternal light, clothed in temporary dust. Every scar you carry tells a story, a sacred record of the moments when pain met purpose. You may not have realized it, but every wound you survived has been gathering oil. The crushing you endured was not meant to destroy you, but to produce something powerful within you. What you thought was breaking you was actually pressing you into anointing. This is the mystery of the chosen. The world looks at brokenness and sees loss, but heaven looks and sees preparation. The fire that burned others refined you. The storms that drowned others taught you to walk on water. You learned not just to survive pain, but to transform it, to turn wounds into wisdom and ashes into authority. The sacred text records it in Luke chapter 4, verse 18. "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and recovery of sight to the blind, to set at liberty them that are bruised." End quote. These words are not distant history. They are the living script of your destiny. The same Spirit that anointed Christ now flows through your scars. Every bruise you endured has become a vessel of healing for someone else. You carry within you the authority of one who has survived the fire and lived to testify that grace is stronger than grief. Do you remember the moments when you thought you couldn't bear it any longer, when the weight of heartbreak, loss, or betrayal seemed unbearable? Those moments were the sacred forge. The oil of anointing is costly because it is extracted through crushing. God trusted you with pain because He knew you would not waste it. You have been entrusted with empathy, the kind of compassion that can only come from having been broken yourself. And now, as heaven's healing flows through you, others will find freedom in your presence. You won't even have to speak. Your story will breathe healing into the atmosphere. The same comfort that once rescued you will now rest upon others. That is how God works. He redeems suffering by turning the wounded into healers, the captives into liberators, the silenced into messengers. It is no small thing to be chosen for such a purpose. The anointing is not glamorous, it is costly. It demands surrender. It demands honesty. It demands the willingness to be emptied before being filled. The chosen cannot cling to bitterness. Their hands must remain open to pour. You have been emptied through grief, but that emptiness has made room for divine oil. You are being filled again, not with the noise of the world, but with the fragrance of heaven. There is something sacred about the ones who carry oil born of suffering. Their eyes see differently. Their hearts beat slower, gentler, steadier. They walk into rooms and shift the atmosphere without saying a word. Their strength is quiet, their faith unshakable. The world sees them and feels peace, unaware that peace was purchased at the cost of many battles fought in secret. You are one of those carriers of peace. You have been entrusted with this fragrance because you know what pain smells like. You have walked through fire and come out not smelling of smoke. That is no small miracle. It is divine evidence that you were never alone in the flames. But this oil you carry is not for display, it is for deliverance. It is meant to touch others, to free the bound and comfort the weary. Every time you share your story, heaven multiplies the oil. Every time you choose forgiveness over resentment, more is poured. Every act of love becomes a new vessel for anointing. You are becoming a walking tabernacle of healing, a living sanctuary through which God's presence flows. There will come moments when you sense that flow increasing, almost tangible, like warmth rising within your chest. That's not imagination. That's the Spirit affirming that the oil is active. You were crushed so others could find wholeness through your endurance. You were broken open so love could pour out. So, do not despise the scars. They are not reminders of weakness, but signatures of victory. Each mark tells the story of a battle won, of grace prevailing, of faith refusing to die. You carry the fragrance of resurrection, the proof that what was meant to bury you only planted you deeper in purpose. Walk with reverence for what you carry. The anointing is heavy, yes, but it is also holy. It is heaven's trust resting upon your humanity, and from this moment on, every step you take, every word you speak, will release the power of that oil into the world around you. Chosen one, every faith must eventually be tested, not the kind of test that asks for words or appearances, but the kind that presses your heart until only truth remains. You have reached that sacred threshold, the place where your faith is stripped of performance and proven through surrender. It is the valley where belief is no longer convenient, where you must decide if you will trust God when nothing makes sense. This is the place where promises seem silent, prayers feel unanswered, and the future looks like fog. You stand between what was spoken and what has not yet appeared. The in-between is not easy. It stretches your patience, confronts your fear, and exposes the cracks in your trust. But this is where real faith is born, not on the mountain of comfort, but in the wilderness of uncertainty. The ancient story reminds us in Job chapter 13, verse 15, "Though he slay me, yet will I trust in him." That single sentence holds the weight of divine maturity. Job did not understand his suffering, but he refused to abandon faith. He didn't need explanation to remain devoted. That is the kind of faith you are being invited into, the faith that does not depend on outcomes but on relationship. You are learning that trusting God is not about escaping storms. It is about standing still while He proves Himself faithful within them. You've walked through enough disappointments to know that human plans crumble easily. You've seen people promise loyalty and vanish at the first sign of difficulty. You've learned that even your own strength can betray you. And yet, here, you are still reaching toward heaven. That persistence is sacred. It is the evidence of grace still alive in you. You may not have all the answers, but you have not lost your hunger for truth. That alone separates you from despair. Faith is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to keep moving despite it. It is the choice to praise even when your heart aches, to keep walking when your legs tremble, to keep believing when your mind screams that it's over. It is defiance against darkness, a declaration that no matter how heavy the night, the dawn will come. You've been walking through fire, but the fire has not consumed you. It has revealed you. Trials have peeled away everything false until only what is real remains. You are learning to live without illusions, to trust without proof, to rest without certainty. This is the raw beauty of refined faith. It no longer needs evidence to stand. It just believes, and when that kind of faith takes root, everything shifts. The noise of fear begins to fade. The constant anxiety of trying to control outcomes loosens its grip. You begin to breathe again, knowing that even if you can't trace His hand, you can still trust His heart. That is the freedom of surrender. And so, as you stand in this season of testing, remember this truth. Your faith is being refined, not rejected. Every unanswered prayer, every delayed promise, every painful waiting moment, it is all fire shaping gold. The heat is not meant to destroy you, but to prove you. What survives this refining will be unshakable. You are being sculpted into someone who does not merely believe in blessings, but embodies belief itself. Your life will become a living sermon of endurance, a quiet witness that faith still works, even when everything else falls apart. Others will see your calm and feel hope again. Now, pause with me for a moment. You don't need to shout or strive. Just breathe and let this truth settle in your spirit. You are not being punished. You are being purified. You are not forgotten. You are being forged. And if this message resonates deep within you, if you feel the echo of recognition in your heart, then let your faith speak. Go to the comments and write, "I trust." Write it not as a reaction, but as revelation. Those two words are your declaration to heaven and defiance to hell. They say, even in the silence, "I will not give up." When you type them, you're not performing. You're participating in prophecy. You're aligning your spirit with eternal trust, the kind that can't be shaken, even in fire. And remember this, beloved, Storms come and go, but faith remains. You will see the purpose behind this pain. You will witness redemption rise from the ashes of what once seemed lost. Hold fast. Your test is not proof of God's distance, it is proof of your destiny. There comes a sacred turning point in every chosen life, a moment when the testing gives way to confirmation. You've walked through storms, through silence, through refining fire. And now, heaven begins to whisper. It is time. What once felt like delay now reveals itself as design. The pieces that once confused, you start to align like stars forming constellations in the night sky. The fog lifts. You sense the shift. This is the moment when the mantle settles on your shoulders, not as a sudden explosion of glory, but as a gentle weight, a holy gravity. You feel it in your spirit first, the awareness that your story is not merely about survival anymore. You've been prepared to carry something greater than comfort. The mantle of the chosen is not a robe of luxury, it's a garment woven with obedience, humility, and responsibility. It was written in Isaiah chapter 6, verse 8, Here am I, send me. These words are not a distant call, they are the heartbeat of your present moment. God is asking again, who will go? And deep inside, your spirit answers, here am I. You've walked through enough wilderness to know that obedience is never easy, but always worth it. The mantle is not always visible to others. It is felt before it is seen. It changes the way you perceive yourself. You begin to carry peace even when storms rise. You start speaking life where others only see ruin. You move with quiet assurance, knowing that heaven has entrusted you with something sacred. This awareness doesn't inflate your ego, it humbles you, because you realize you are not chosen for recognition, but for responsibility. When God places a mantle, He doesn't do it for show. He does it for service. You are not crowned to be admired. You are commissioned to build. You are not anointed to be celebrated. You are anointed to transform. And though the world may never fully understand your calling, the heavens rejoice when you walk in it. But even warriors need sustenance. Even those who carry light must tend the flame. Think of your spirit as a lantern. It burns brightly only when the oil within is renewed. These messages, this community, these divine reminders, they are oil for your lamp. And if they have poured light into your dark nights, consider keeping that light alive for others too. When you you fan the flame. Your small gesture sends sparks of hope farther than you imagine. When you share, you become a bridge. Your act of obedience carries light into places it has not yet reached. And if your heart feels stirred, if something within you says, I want to help keep this fire burning, then know this, your offering, your donation, your seed of support. It's not payment, it's partnership. You're not funding words, you're fueling souls. Every beam of a lighthouse is powered by someone unseen who keeps its flame alive. You can be that unseen guardian today. Your support becomes oil in the lamp that guides weary hearts home. You might never meet those souls, but heaven will. Heaven will count your quiet act as part of its miracle. And if you haven't already, subscribe, not out of obligation, but as a way of staying within the flow. Think of it as anchoring your ship in safe waters. The same stream of truth that reached you once will keep reaching for you, drawing you deeper into purpose with each word released. This is not a subscription to content, it's a tether to calling. Your yes echoes across eternity. every act of generosity, every moment of engagement. Every time you whisper, "Amen," beneath your breath, it all becomes part of the sound heaven hears when the chosen rise. You stand now in that threshold moment, the one where destiny becomes direction. The mantle has found its rightful place. You no longer ask, "Why me?" Now you whisper, "Use me." And that whisper shakes the unseen realm. Angels take formation. Chains begin to break. Generations will be changed because one heart, your heart, decided to obey. Let this be your prayer in the quiet tonight. I will carry what you give me, even when it costs me. I will walk where you send me, even when it scares me. That is the cry of the chosen, and heaven always answers that cry with strength. So, beloved, wear the mantle well. Let humility be its thread. Let love be its lining. And let obedience be its weight. Walk gently, speak truthfully, and shine steadily. The world needs what you carry, and heaven has confirmed you are ready. You can feel it, the quiet, pulling away. The spaces that once felt full now echo with absence. The people who once filled your circle now drift like leaves carried off by the wind. It's disorienting at first. This divine pruning, you wonder if you did something wrong, if somehow you pushed them away. But this is not punishment, it's purification. God is protecting your purpose by trimming what no longer bears fruit. Separation is never comfortable. You have loved deeply, trusted fully, and poured into people who were not meant to stay for the entire journey. They were chapters, not conclusions. God allowed them to walk with you for a season so you could learn, grow, and sometimes outgrow. The pruning does not mean you have failed. It means you have matured. Heaven never prunes to punish. It prunes to prepare. The gardener does not cut away dead branches out of cruelty, but out of care. Too many attachments will drain the life from what is blooming within you. Some relationships were never evil. They were simply expired. Their purpose was fulfilled. And holding on to them any longer would stunt your growth. The voice of Jesus spoke of this mystery in John chapter 15, verse 2. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit he takes away, and every branch that bears fruit he prunes, that it may bear more fruit. Those words reveal the pattern of divine cultivation. Fruitful lives require holy cutting. The same hands that bless you will sometimes wound you not to harm you, but to heal you in advance. God removes what you cannot release, because he knows what lies ahead requires lighter travel. There is a sacred loneliness that often follows the chosen. You will notice that the higher you climb, the fewer voices can go with you. Altitude require solitude. Just as mountain air thins with height, spiritual air thins as you ascend. Not everyone can breathe where God is taking you. This separation is not a rejection of others, it's an elevation of assignment. You have been called to walk paths where crowd noise becomes distraction. That's why certain people no longer understand you. They were comfortable with the version of you that needed validation, but growth has changed your frequency. What once bonded you now feels foreign. You speak from revelation while they still speak from routine. You move from alignment, not approval. It's tempting to go back, to shrink again, so you can fit into old spaces. But remember this, you cannot carry divine fire into rooms designed for candles. Your presence alone convicts stagnation. When people begin to fall away, do not chase bless. Their exit creates room for the new connections heaven is preparing. God never subtracts without intending to multiply differently. This pruning is also internal. The Spirit is cutting away the need to please, the fear of rejection, the constant urge to explain yourself. You are learning that obedience is often misunderstood. True peace doesn't come from being accepted, it comes from being aligned. Do you recall the moments when your heart hurt from letting go? The nights you replayed conversations, wondering if you should have tried harder? Those were holy wounds. They taught you that love does not always mean staying. Sometimes the most faithful thing you can do is release, and even in that release, grace flows. God never asks you to let go without giving you something greater in return: clarity, freedom, peace. You may not see it yet, but separation always precedes revelation. Abraham had to leave his home before God showed him the promise. Moses had to walk into the desert before he saw the burning bush. Jesus had to step into solitude before beginning his ministry. You too must walk this sacred path alone for a while so that you can hear clearly again. The loneliness of separation eventually becomes the luxury of communion. The silence that once felt painful becomes a sanctuary. You will find that you are never truly alone. You are simply surrounded by unseen witnesses. Heaven draws nearer when the crowd fades. Angels move more freely when distractions die. So, don't mourn the pruning. Celebrate it. It means you are alive. Dead branches don't get pruned. Only living ones do. Every cut is proof that growth is happening. Every departure is evidence that destiny is advancing. You are being shaped, not stripped. One day soon, you will look back on this season and understand why certain doors closed, why certain people left, why certain prayers went unanswered. You will see the divine wisdom in what once looked like loss. God never takes without purpose. He prunes with precision, and what remains after the cutting is purer, stronger, and infinitely more fruitful. It begins as a whisper, subtle yet undeniable, the feeling that something in the air has shifted. You sense it before you see it. The heaviness that once lingered begins to lift. The atmosphere, once thick with delay, now hums with anticipation. Heaven is moving again, and you can feel it. The season of silence has ended. The time of release has come. For a long while, you stood still, waiting for signs that things would change. You prayed. You persevered. You stayed faithful when nothing seemed to move. What you didn't realize was that heaven had been rearranging everything behind the scenes. You were not waiting in vain. You were being positioned for breakthrough. The voice of God now whispers to your spirit, this is the moment. The tides are shifting. The spiritual atmosphere that once resisted you is now aligning with divine favor. What was blocked is being opened. What was delayed is being delivered. The fog of confusion is clearing, and light is returning to your path. We are reminded through the words recorded in Revelation chapter 3, verse 8. Behold, I have set before thee an open door, and no man can shut it, for thou hast a little strength, and hast kept my word, and hast not denied my name. This is your verse of confirmation. The door has been opened, not because of your perfection, but because of your perseverance. You kept believing when faith felt fragile. You kept standing when others sat down. You held on to your calling, even when no one understood. And now, heaven responds. Open doors do not always appear dramatically. Sometimes they unfold quietly through divine connections, unexpected opportunities, and subtle shifts that seem ordinary at first glance. But pay attention, what looks natural often carries supernatural fingerprints. The phone call you weren't expecting, the idea that suddenly resurfaces, the conversation that reignites purpose, these are all signs of movement. You are entering a divine transition, where everything begins to align with your assignment. Old burdens will fall away. Closed chapters will remain sealed. You will no longer have to force what flows. This is the season of ease after endurance. But hear this truth. Chosen one, open doors also require discernment. Not every opportunity is ordained. Some doors are distractions, painted to look like destiny. That's why God has been refining your spirit to teach you to recognize peace over pressure. The right door will not demand you to betray who you are. It will welcome your authenticity. You are not stepping into this new season empty-handed. You are bringing with you the wisdom of the wilderness, the strength of the storm, the humility of waiting, and the faith of survival. These are your keys. They will unlock spaces that talent alone cannot reach. What you've endured has qualified you for the next dimension of purpose. And now, as this shift unfolds, you may feel heaven urging you to respond, to agree with what is being released. Agreement is powerful. When you speak faith, you activate movement. When you declare alignment, you invite acceleration. So pause right here and acknowledge what your spirit already knows. You are standing before an open door. You are no longer fighting for permission. You have already been chosen for access. Heaven is inviting you to step through. If this resonates deep within your soul, if you can feel that pull of destiny stirring again, then let your response rise. Go to the comments and type 444. This is not just a number, it is a prophetic act of alignment. Vous représentez divine order, the establishment of foundation, the stabilization of what has been shaken. When you write it, you are saying, God, I align with your order. I walk through the door you have opened. I trust what you are building. Then, this is your moment to agree with heaven's rhythm. Do not rush it. Feel it. Breathe it in. The same God who carried you through the waiting is now calling you into the walking. You are stepping from prayer into performance, from promise into proof. The winds of change are not against you, they are beneath you, lifting you higher. There will be signs confirming this shift in the coming days. Doors that once resisted, you will suddenly open. Situations that seemed impossible will begin to unfold with ease. People you thought were gone will return, not to distract, but to assist. You will see evidence that heaven has gone before you. And when you cross this threshold, remember, this is not the end of your journey, but the beginning of manifestation. Every tear you cried has watered the soil for this moment. Every step of faith has paved the path for your elevation. The door is open now. Chosen one, walk through it boldly. Heaven waits on the other side. There comes a day when you stop trembling before storms and start speaking to them. It is the day your authority awakens, the moment when you finally recognize that the same power that raised Christ from the dead lives within you. It is not arrogance, it is awareness. You begin to understand that faith was never meant to make you passive. It was designed to make you powerful. This is where your walk changes. You stop begging heaven for rescue and start commanding peace over your own life. You stop asking God to move mountains that He already gave you authority to speak to. You start realizing that miracles are not random, they are responses to faith spoken with conviction. You, chosen one, are no longer waiting for rescue. You have become the rescuer, the intercessor, the vessel through which heaven intervenes on earth. It was written in Matthew chapter 8, verse 27. Even the winds and the sea obey him. End of 2. Those who witnessed Jesus that day were astonished, not just by his words, but by the authority within them. He did not plead with the storm. He addressed it. He did not panic. He proclaimed peace. That same authority now flows through you. For you are his reflection in a world desperate for calm. The same spirit that calmed waves with a word now waits for you to speak with that same confidence. Authority does not roar. It rests. It doesn't need to prove itself. It simply knows. You will begin to notice that as your awareness grows, your reactions change. Where you once panicked, you now pause. Where you once fought with words, you now stand in stillness. Where you once tried to control, you now command peace. This is not magic, it is maturity. You have been trained through battles that taught you endurance. Every delay developed discernment. Every heartbreak produced depth. Every loss carved humility into your heart until you could carry divine power without pride. Now, heaven can trust you with authority because you've learned the weight of it. You understand that power without compassion is destruction. Authority without love is noise. The awakening of authority begins internally. It starts when you stop believing the lie that you are powerless. The enemy thrives in deception. His strongest weapon is convincing you that you have none. But the truth is, you have always carried divine backing. You were never empty-handed. The words you speak in faith carry weight in the unseen realm. Every time you declare peace, heaven echoes it. Every time you rebuke fear, darkness retreats. You may not always see the immediate outcome, but the atmosphere shifts each time you open your mouth in alignment with God's word. That is what it means to reign with Christ, to exercise spiritual dominion, not through control, but through alignment. You will start to notice that people come to you for guidance, for comfort, for clarity. They will sense that your words carry something different, stability. It's not because you are superior, it's because you have become a conduit of heaven's authority. When you speak, it's not about volume, but vibration. Your words carry weight because they come from surrender, not pride. Authority in the kingdom is not loud. It whispers truth, and the world obeys. It's a calm command that carries eternity within it. When you walk in that, you stop fearing circumstances because you realize that circumstances bow to the spirit within you. The day will come, and perhaps it already has, when you stand before chaos and feel no fear. You will look at the storm that once terrified you and say, "Peace, be still." And the storm will recognize your voice because it recognizes who sent you. You are not a guest in this world. You are an ambassador. You carry heaven's language, and creation responds to it. Even your prayers will shift. They will sound less like begging and more like partnering, less like desperation, more like declaration. You will speak as one who knows the outcome before the battle begins. You will pray not for victory, but from victory. This is what it means to walk as a chosen one, someone who no longer doubts their authority, someone who no longer sees themselves as a bystander in life's chaos, but as a co-laborer with heaven's power, you have been entrusted with the authority to release peace, to declare healing, to shift atmospheres wherever you go. So let the storms come. You no longer fear them. You have become one who commands them. You have learned that real strength is not in resistance, but in rest, in the stillness that knows its power. And when you speak now, your words will no longer be echoes, they will be decrees. The winds will recognize the tone of divine alignment. The sea will settle at the sound of peace in your voice. The time always comes when the light you carry begins to attract others who carry the same flame. It is not something you force, not something you orchestrate. It happens naturally, like rivers finding one another on their way to the sea. This is the gathering of the remnant, the coming together of those marked by the same divine pulse beating beneath their ribs. You have felt alone for so long, but that loneliness was preparation. Heaven was setting the stage for convergence. You were never meant to walk this path isolated forever. Separation had a purpose to refine you, to clarify your voice, to strengthen your discernment. But now that the refining has done its work, connection begins. The Spirit starts to draw like-hearted souls together, each one carrying a piece of the larger vision. This is how heaven builds movements through unity, not uniformity. It is written in Matthew chapter 18, verse 20, "For where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, there am I in the midst of them." End quote. Those words are not poetic metaphor, they are law in the spiritual realm. When the chosen unite, presence intensifies, power multiplies, isolation breaks. Every chosen one carries a spark, but together they become a flame that cannot be quenched. This is the moment you step from solitude into synergy. The gathering of the remnant is subtle at first. It begins with divine encounters that seem coincidental. Someone speaks a word that echoes your secret prayer. A stranger's message confirms what you felt in silence. A new connection carries an ancient familiarity. These are not accidents, they are alignments. The same Spirit that whispered to you in the wilderness now whispers to others, weaving threads of destiny together. When chosen ones meet, recognition happens in silence. It's not about appearance, background, or belief systems. It's about resonance. Something in your spirit says, "I know you." You feel it immediately. That shared weight of purpose, that familiar endurance born from similar battles. It's the unspoken understanding between warriors who have walked through fire and survived. Do not resist this connection out of fear of betrayal. Yes, you were wounded before, but these are not the same people. God is sending those who speak the language of your destiny, not the dialect of your pain. You will know them by peace, not by performance. Their presence will not drain you, it will strengthen you. They will not compete with your light, they will protect it. And as this gathering unfolds, you will notice something else, the synergy of purpose. Where once you could only carry a small part of the vision, now it begins to expand. Every connection brings a new dimension of strength, creativity, and revelation. You were never designed to complete the mission alone. The body of Christ moves as one, each part carrying what the other lacks. This is the beauty of divine collaboration. The enemy has always feared this moment. Because unity multiplies power. He thrives in division, but trembles at connection. That's why he tried to isolate you with disappointment and mistrust. He hoped you'd stay guarded. unwilling to connect again. But what he didn't anticipate was that your solitude would produce clarity, and now you can discern the counterfeit from the called. There will be divine appointments, people who cross your path carrying wisdom for your next step. Mentors who confirm what heaven already told you. Brothers and sisters who pray without agenda. They are not random. They are remnants. You were never meant to gather crowds. You were meant to find your tribe. And when you do, the sound that rises from that unity becomes a beacon to others still wandering in darkness. You will begin to see it a ripple effect of restoration. The remnant doesn't gather to hide, they gather to ignite. Together, they form spiritual embassies in a world starving for truth. Homes become sanctuaries. Conversations become worship. Ordinary spaces turn holy because of shared presence. God doesn't need masses to move, He needs agreement. And you, chosen one, are part of that divine agreement. The gathering will feel like coming home. After years of feeling misunderstood, you will finally exhale. You will look around and realize you are surrounded by people who see your soul, not your scars. These are your people, the ones who remind you that you are not strange. You are strategic. You are not too much. You are precisely what this season requires. Together, you will carry the light into places one person could never reach alone. You will intercede for nations, heal wounds through compassion, and awaken sleeping spirits just by walking in unity. The remnant is rising. You can feel the tremor in the spirit, the hum of divine alignment spreading quietly, invisibly. Inevitably, this is not revival built by hands, it is resurrection breathed by heaven. The chosen are finding each other again. There comes a final test. Before every elevation, a quiet, private moment where obedience outweighs desire, where surrender speaks louder than ambition. It does not come with warning. It slips into your life, disguised as a choice, so ordinary you almost miss its weight. But heaven watches closely in these moments, for they reveal not what your lips profess, but what your heart truly believes. You have already walked through fire, learned endurance, carried faith through storms, and stood firm in silence. Yet this moment, this final refining, is not about your strength, it's about your willingness. Will you still obey when no one applauds? Will you still trust when it costs something precious? Will you still follow the voice even when it leads through shadows again? It is written in 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 8, "The crown of righteousness awaits me, which the Lord will award on that day." Those words are not a threat, but a promise. Faithfulness is heaven's highest currency. And your crown is not earned through ease, but through endurance. The crown of obedience cannot be bought. It can only be received by those who remain steadfast when compromise looks convenient. You stand on holy ground, now the threshold between testing and triumph. Heaven has watched you hold your integrity when shortcuts appeared. You refused to trade authenticity for acceptance. You turned down opportunities that would have advanced you, but cost your peace. That is what it means to be chosen to value obedience more than outcome. The crown you're about to receive isn't made of gold or jewels. It's woven from surrender, humility, and unwavering trust. It's invisible to human eyes, but radiant in the spirit. And when you wear it, everything around you will recognize it. Atmospheres will respond. Doors will open, not because of your effort, but because heaven endorses your name. But even kings and queens need nourishment. Even warriors need rest. That's why moments like this matter, when your soul pauses to be reminded of who you are and what you carry. These words you're reading aren't just text on a screen, they are living embers, keeping your inner fire alive. And if they've ever rekindled your hope, even for a moment, then you know how vital it is to keep that flame burning. Think of it like a lighthouse perched on the edge of a dark sea. Every light you see from it comes at the cost of oil burning steadily through the night. And that light, that steady glow, is what guides others home. When you like this message, when you share it, when you subscribe to stay connected, you are helping keep that lighthouse lit. You are part of the unseen crew that keeps the flame alive for those still lost in their storm. If your heart feels stirred, consider sowing a seed into this space, not as a transaction, but as an act of participation. Every offering, every donation is oil for the lamp. You're not giving to a platform, you're giving to purpose. You're saying, let this light keep shining. Let someone else find hope, like I did. Every gesture matters. A like tells heaven, I receive this truth. A share whispers, someone else needs this. A donation says, I believe in this work enough to sustain it. Each act becomes part of the ripple that carries faith farther than any of us could reach alone. You are part of something sacred, something global and eternal. A network of chosen ones who refuse to let darkness win. Every word spoken here, every message released, is a spark in that great chain of light. Together, we are rebuilding altars of faith across the digital wilderness, one heart at a time. And now, as you read these final words of this section, take a deep breath and feel the weight of your crown. It doesn't shimmer with diamonds, it glows with obedience. It hums with the sound of surrender. You earned it not by striving, but by staying faithful. That faithfulness will carry you into the next realm of purpose. In this still moment, leave a trace of your presence here. Write something small, something sincere. Your reflection, your gratitude, your amen. Let your words rest like candles in this space, so that others who wander here will find light in your comment. You never know whose weary soul might be rekindled by the flame you leave behind. The crown of obedience sits upon your spirit now. Chosen one, wear it not as decoration, but as declaration. It is proof that you have endured, and heaven is smiling. There is a moment when the waiting ends, not with fanfare, not with thunder, but with a quiet unveiling. The weight you have carried begins to lift, and the promises that once seemed distant begin to take shape before your eyes. You do not need to chase them anymore. They come to you because they recognize you. You have become what you once prayed for. The fulfillment of prophecy does not always arrive in noise. Sometimes it comes as peace that passes understanding. This is the revelation of glory. It is not a sudden miracle that erases every scar, but the gentle realization that every scar has meaning. The very places where you bled now shine. The very wounds that once hurt now glow with light. You are living proof that what was meant to destroy can be transformed into something divine. It is written in Haggai chapter 2, verse 9, the glory of this latter house shall be greater than the former, saith the Lord. Those words are more than ancient prophecy, they are your present reality. You are stepping into a glory that surpasses what you have lost. The pain of the past has prepared the foundation for a future that carries twice the light. What was broken is now blessed. What was barren now blossoms. This is the divine paradox. God restores by multiplication, not replacement. Look around you. The signs are subtle but sure. The air feels lighter, the path clearer. Opportunities once locked behind unseen barriers begin to open. Not because you pushed harder, but because your spirit has aligned with heaven's rhythm. This is what restoration looks like. It doesn't always come as wealth or recognition, but as wholeness. You find yourself breathing again, dreaming again, believing again. There was a time when you could not imagine joy without fear of losing it. But now, peace no longer feels fragile. It has settled deep within you, like a tree rooted by living water. You have learned that true glory is not about visible success, but inner steadiness. It is not the absence of storms, but the mastery of calm. What you are experiencing now is not a reward for endurance. It is the unveiling of purpose. Every trial was a lesson. Every delay, a teacher. Every loss, a doorway into something higher. You begin to see how each event in your life, even the painful ones, fit perfectly into the architecture of destiny. God never wastes a season. What felt like wandering was alignment in disguise. And now, as the veil lifts, gratitude floods your spirit. You no longer resent the journey. You understand that without the valley, you would never appreciate the mountaintop. Without the silence, you would never recognize the sound of heaven's voice. Without the struggle, you would never know your own strength. Every broken moment was a note in the symphony of redemption. The glory of this season is gentle, not overwhelming. It does not demand attention, it carries presence. You move differently now. You no longer strive, you flow. You no longer seek validation, you embody peace. You no longer fear what's next, you trust the one who writes the next chapter. That is true glory, tranquility in trust. Others will look at you and see success. But what they are really seeing is surrender. They will sense your light and call it strength, not realizing that it was born from humility. You are not shining because of what you've achieved, but because of what you've released. When you stopped grasping for control, you made room for grace to glow through you. This glory is not about being above others, it is about being among them with compassion. You now carry healing in your presence. Your words will soothe without trying. Your silence will comfort without effort. You are not striving to be noticed anymore, you are serving to reflect. Glory flows through you, not for you. There will still be challenges. Yes, but they will no longer shake you. You have learned that storms cannot steal peace when the anchor is divine. You walk through chaos like one walking through wind, feeling its force but never losing balance. You have become a dwelling place for calm. When you look back now, you see how far you've come, not just in distance, but in depth. You see the fingerprints of heaven on every page of your story. You see the mercy that held you, the grace that guided you, the faith that formed you. This is what glory truly means: to stand whole after being broken, to carry light after walking through shadow, to speak peace after surviving pain. And as this revelation unfolds, you finally understand the glory was never about arrival. It was always about transformation. You are not just standing in God's glory, you have become a reflection of it. There is a stillness that comes after revelation, the calm after years of wrestling, the silence that feels like completion rather than confusion. You have reached that sacred horizon now. Chosen one. What once felt like endless wandering has brought you here, to understanding. It is not the end of your journey, but it is the moment when everything behind you begins to make sense. The storms, the silence, the separation, all of it converges into clarity. This is the unveiling of your eternal commission. Heaven has not merely chosen you for blessing, it has chosen you for responsibility. You were never called just to be rescued. You were called to rescue. The same light that pulled you from darkness now burns within you to guide others home. You are no longer just the recipient of grace, you are its carrier. The ancient words resound through time in Mark chapter 16, verse 15, "Go ye into all the world, and preach the gospel to every creature." This is not a command of noise, but of presence. It is not about pulpits or platforms, but about living truth so vividly that every step becomes a sermon. To preach does not always mean to speak. Sometimes it means to embody kindness in chaos, forgiveness in betrayal, peace in pressure. You, chosen one, have become a living gospel. The message of redemption is written not on scrolls but in your scars. You now carry divine assignment, to reveal love in a world addicted to judgment, to bring compassion into systems that have forgotten humanity, to carry hope where hope has grown cold. You will find that your mere existence will challenge darkness because you no longer react from fear but respond from faith. You have become the echo of heaven in human form. This commission is not just about reaching people, it's about restoring order. Every act of mercy realigns creation to its maker. Every word of truth repairs what deception fractured. You are part of heaven's restoration project, a walking covenant between the divine and the dust. You are proof that grace can live inside flesh and still shine undimmed. Do not think your influence small because it is quiet. A candle doesn't shout, it simply burns. So does your light. Wherever you go, hearts will remember warmth. You will not always know the lives you've touched, but heaven keeps record of every spark you leave behind. The words you speak in faith will travel farther than you imagine. Carried by spirit, winds into souls you may never meet. You may never wear a title, but you will carry authority. You may never hold a microphone, but you will move mountains with your prayers. You may never see crowds, but you will shift generations by your obedience. This is the beauty of divine calling. It does not seek applause, it seeks alignment. Every lesson, every loss, every late night of tears was part of this shaping. God was not preparing you for comfort, but for commission. The trials were training. The silence was strategy, and the endurance was equipping. Now you understand why the path was narrow. It had to carve a vessel pure enough to carry eternal truth. And yet, even as you stand in this awareness, remember, the mission is not to be perfect, but to be present. Perfection isolates, presence restores. Show up in love. Speak with gentleness. Serve with compassion. Let your life be the proof that heaven is real and that grace still transforms. You are not called to convince, but to embody. There will be days when the weight of this assignment feels heavy again. In those moments, recall the voice that called your name in the darkness and carried you here. You are not sent alone. The same presence that sustained prophets and apostles lives within you now. You are surrounded by witnesses seen and unseen who cheer each step you take. As you go forward, you will begin to notice divine alignment, following you like a shadow. Words will come at the right time. People will appear with the right help. Provision will meet purpose because heaven funds what heaven initiates. Your task is not to strive, but to stay yielded, to keep your heart soft and your focus steady. One day, when you look back, you will realize that the call was never about a single moment. It was about a lifelong rhythm of yes. Every sunrise will whisper it again. You are chosen. You are sent. You are loved. Oh, and though the road ahead will have its valleys, it speaks, and its pauses. You will never again walk blind. You now walk as one who sees, one who knows, one who carries the eternal flame. Your life, chosen one, has become a message. Heaven continues to write a living testimony that divine purpose can find a willing heart and turn it into light. And now, beloved chosen one, you have reached the end of this divine journey, but not the end of your becoming. Every word you've received was a seed planted in sacred soil. You have walked through revelation, through remembrance, through refinement, and now you stand as one reborn in purpose. If this message has stirred your soul, if somewhere within these words you found strength, peace, or recognition, don't let it fade into silence. Let your amen be heard in simple ways. Tap the heart, share the light, and leave a word below your reflection, your gratitude, or even just your yes. Someone may find hope in the trail of your comment. And if your spirit feels aligned with this voice, subscribe, not as a ritual, but as a connection. Together we are building a sanctuary of words, a place where the weary return to remember who they are. Your presence here is not coincidence, it is continuation. So, carry this fire forward. Let your voice, your kindness, your faith ripple beyond the screen. Heaven began something in you here, and the story is only just beginning.